watching the Urban Debate. I'm Faye D'Souza. On International Women's Day, we decided that on this channel we have a platform that has been dedicated to the safety of women. We also realize that a lot of times there isn't anybody that women in distress or women who are concerned can go to for help. We are going to use now this platform over the next 1 hour to talk to you about the issues that matter. I'm going to first put on your screen, at the bottom of your screen, a phone number. This phone number is going to be available to you for the next hour to call us and ask us anything you need to know about things like divorce, about child custody, about child support and alimony, or inheritance laws that you might have been shortchanged with or you're currently distressed about. We're also including here people who will help you find answers to questions about domestic abuse or any sort of harassment that you might have been facing. Also remember, you do not need to tell us your name. The call can be completely anonymous. Our only interest here is in to be able to help you in any way that we can. The phone number is on your screen. We have a team standing by to answer your phone calls. All you have to do is get in touch if you are distressed in any way, or if you have a family member who's distressed in any way. You do not have to tell us your names. You can call us anonymously. Joining me on the show this evening, people who have been kind enough to give us their time. Dr. Shashikala Gurpur, Dean of the Symbiosis Law School in Pune, who spent a lot of time talking to women and also helping women. Aishwarya Bhati is an advocate in the Supreme Court. Surekha Shetty is an advocate who joins us from Bangalore, and Swapnil Kothari, senior advocate in the Bombay High Court. I'm very glad that all of them have joined us on the show. Aishwarya, I'm going to start with you and ask a very simple question. One of the most complicated things that Indian women have to go through is our complicated divorce laws. There are divorce laws that are different for every community. We know how complicated currently the battle against triple talaq is in our country. I want you to just help our audience understand that unfortunately in India, we are not entitled to alimony, that women who get divorced are not entitled to any of the assets that their husbands hold.
Yeah, you're right, Faye. The situation is really abysmal and grim, to tell you the least. You know, there's a whole debate that has now started about the Uniform Civil Code. But you know what actually is not uniform? All our criminal laws are already uniform. All our civil relations, apart from the relationships of marriage, are already uniform. Now, what doesn't remain uniform is only issues which deal with women's rights. For some reason, you know, activists and, you know, religious gurus and governance, people in the parliament for the last 70 years have been completely indifferent to the rights of the women, and they have somehow conveniently managed to keep the three important rights that a woman needs in the marriage. Those three rights are still continuing as per our personal laws. Apart from that, all our civil relationships, whether it is with our employee, our employer, our partners, our company, where we work, how we build a house, how we walk on the road, the telephones, the electricity, the water connections, these are all governed by gender-neutral and religion-neutral laws. The only thing that is not is marriage, divorce, and succession. These are the only three areas where we are not governed by uniform, gender-neutral, and religion-neutral laws. Now, please see the problem that happens. The problem that happens is cases like that went to the Supreme Court, that this Hindu man, he converted to Islam so that he could marry another woman. Of course, that one case went right up to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said that no, this cannot be done. If he is married under the Hindu law, then he could not have, converted, and that is still bigamy. We all know what happened with the Shah Bano case. The Supreme Court said this woman who was in matrimony for 40 years, Shah Bano, look at the courage of that woman. She said, I have followed every duty of the marriage. I have not done anything wrong in my marriage. Still my husband stood up and said talaq 3 times and divorced me. And I am at least entitled to maintenance under the Criminal Procedure Code, which is against the part of the Criminal Code. Now, Supreme Court stands up in favor of the women. Look at the foresight of Supreme Court. In the early 80s, the Supreme Court stands up and says, No, irrespective of religion, every woman has the right to maintenance under the criminal code. The government of the day stands up, brings a law. Now, curiously, that law is called Protection of Muslim Women at the Time of Divorce, etc. Act. But far from protecting Muslim women, it actually takes away the protection. Now, there is another area, custody is not, there is no right of custody in any other religion apart from Hindu religion. So, a Muslim woman, forgetting her name, Hashmi, yes, she had to fight this courageous battle, and she ultimately got the court to agree that the custody is a right that is available to her. Now, of course, it's a gender neutral and religion neutral law, which is the Juvenile Justice Act and the CARA guidelines, which permit all this. But see how convenient, and see how much of resistance is coming to this. You will find this surprising that over 22 countries which are not even secular countries, which are Islamic countries, which follow the Sharia law, they don't have
Dr.
triple
Shashikala
talaq.
Gurpur
They have very
joins us
limited
right now.
concept of triple talaq.
Dr. Shashikala Gurpur joins us right now. Dr. Gurpur, thank you for joining us. I just want to go over, and we're talking about, and this is the most distressing, children's custody when it comes to divorce, and this is a question that a lot of women will be asking at this point. Where does the law stand about a divorce, and how does a woman go about battling for custody of her own children?
In this area, aside from the personal law, which is, as already told by the expert there, which depends on the religious precepts and principles, we have the recent CARA guidelines and other kinds of developments which are coming up. The general trend is that with the family court's evolution, the couple who have conflict on the issue of custody generally approach the family court. Now, the court takes certain factors into consideration. There has been a lot of development in this area, in the sense that the parent who has the custody already and the parent who has been alienated, what are the rights of the parents who has been alienated? What are the rights of the child with reference to alienated parent? These have been the most contentious issues which have been coming up in the local level courts as well as in Maharashtra's various family courts. Now, there has been a certain trend, and there's a very deep research on this issue, which shows that you have to take the economic capability of the parent who is seeking custody. You have to look at the safety and security of the child. You have to look at the child's right to access and to be loved by both the parents. Now, this approach which the courts are taking in recent days is a very strong departure from the past. In the past, welfare was taken into consideration. While defining welfare, there was a very strong tilt in favor of economic capability of parents, if you go by the trajectory of cases. However, with a couple of women judges coming on the role of Supreme Court, you slowly see a kind of change coming up there, where the judges have argued that the psychological bond between the mother and the child should also be considered alongside the economic dimensions. Because, with a small percentage of women being in secure jobs and the childbearing and the maternity taking a toll on the continuity of service or secure employment, many of women stood to lose custody battles. So, there were a number of judgments coming up from various high courts, especially a very significant judgment from the Madras High Court in the 80s, which said that irrespective of the profession, irrespective of the kind of, in this case, the character of the mother was caste aspersion by the father, and he said that the girl child will not be safe with that mother. But the child chose to be with the mother. So child's choice was taken as the basis while deciding the welfare of the child and while awarding custody of the children.
I want to turn this into actual advice that the women who are watching can use right now. Swapnil Kothari, and this is something that I've personally said in the talks that I give about personal finance, that it's important for women in any walk of life right now, if you are married, to have some assets registered in your name, either jointly with your husband or in your name alone, because it is very clear in our law that even after 10, 15, 20 years of marriage, if the couple are divorced, you do not have access to any assets if those assets are registered in your husband's name. So he technically walks away with all of it and could leave you with nothing. So give us actual tangible advice, Swapnil. Should women be ensuring that any home that they buy is registered in a joint name, that they are 50% holders of that home, any mutual fund investments, any sort of investments, money that is put aside, that they have access to it and they know that it's been put in their names?
Yes, what I would suggest first of all is that before you get married, you might as well have a prenuptial agreement done, so that would sort out major issues and iron out a lot of treasons.
Honestly, how often does that happen?
That doesn't happen very often, especially in this country.
And are you telling me that in India, where right now young ladies largely have very little say in who they marry, that they're going to turn around and ask for prenuptial agreements, Swapnil?
Well, that I agree with you there, that, majority of the women who do not have much say in who they choose to marry, but I think that trend is changing. And once you do get married, then you ensure that every single property that is bought, as Faye pointed out, that, is registered in a dual name along with your husband, so that tomorrow, if things do not work out, then, apart from the rights that you have to your father's property, once you're divorced, separated, or widowed, then you at least have a right to the asset that your husband had whilst you were married to him. So if it's a joint property, if it's a joint house or a joint mutual fund or a joint account, then both of them are equal in that department.
Right.
So I would suggest that that is a good thing. But, if for the educated women and for the women who do have a say, I would still recommend that
How does a prenup work? How do you ask your fiancé to sign a prenup? What's in a prenup? How does it work? How does that work legally?
A prenuptial agreement would amount to, stating that, look, we are all lovely and hunky-dory today, but tomorrow if things do not work out, then let's, stipulate certain things down in the agreement, which, as to who's going to do what after, should we get divorced. First of all, let's discuss the custody of the child and,
and this should be done before you get married by definition of a prenup.
Yes, this is, by definition, by definition, it means that you have an agreement before you get married. In as much as it sounds a little
unromantic.
Unromantic, but I think one has to be a little practical in this department, and especially if you do not know the person that well that you're marrying, then I would recommend this idea. That you get these certain clauses stipulated, that right down to a sofa or something which is going to come here, or it depends on what you have.
You could fundamentally write a prenup that says all assets that we acquire during the course of the marriage need to be split 50-50, and this is how we will work out custody of the children. That should, in the very least, help. I want to bring in Surekha Shetty. Surekha, there is this other concept which Swapnil just touched upon, where he said that you are entitled to, as a woman, and I'm going to say this clearly for our audience, you are entitled to a share in your father's property, irrespective of whether you're single or married or divorced or widowed. You are entitled to an equal share, as are your brothers. Yes. So, Surekha, answer this argument that a lot of families will turn around and say, hey, we gave you whatever we had to give you when you were getting married, so you're no longer entitled to anything. What is the argument against that?
See, first of all, I would like to say that whether the law comes into place or not, there are emotional bondings between the family members. See, first of all, they actually have been showing up so much of love and affection to you, and they may also get married you like at this highest end, like to give all the in the form of dowry or in the form of any sridhan, anything else. So after the marriage, the question of property rights will come only after there is a misunderstanding, or there is a conflict between her husband and herself. Otherwise, I think claiming the property of my father's is not actually important for me. The question is, like, if I am distressed from my husband, then the question of my father's property will come.
Let me argue with you here. Surekha Shetty, are you telling me that if I'm happily married to my husband right now and well looked after, I don't have a question of claiming my father's property? I think that's completely ridiculous. I have every entitlement.
Of course I have a right. See, even with the recent amendment 2005, I have an absolute right over the property. It is not that I am married or not. The question is, as long as I have a sufficient source of income and I am an independent, then why should I actually ask for the property?
I should ask for the property because I'm entitled to it. Why is my brother more entitled to the property than I am? Aishwarya Bhati, this is absolutely ridiculous, and this is the heart of everything that is wrong with our country. Also, the fact, I want to point out that when we come to child support and alimony, which which India has no concept for, and women have to go to court and beseech a judge that, listen, this is what I spend every month, and the judge will then decide whether or not that spend is what they call reasonable, and then decide, based on what you are earning, whether or not the husband needs to pay anything at all to sustain your lifestyle. That if you're already earning, what do you need to ask for money for? You need to ask for money because you are entitled to it. Why aren't women, Aishwarya Bhati, seen as being entitled to anything in this country? What is this argument that if you're making money on your own, if your husband is looking after you, you have no entitlement to your husband's property, to your father's property?
So the question is, like, if I am
It is very
entitled to...
unfortunate that this kind of a counter argument is coming from a lady colleague on the panel, because no son loses, leaves his right just because he's well off or he's doing well in life. He doesn't leave the share in the father's property.
Let me complete my argument.
Let me talk about some practical tips here.
One second. Surekha Shetty, I will give you an opportunity to rebut. One second.
Let me complete
my argument. See, the thing is, like, as long as I am having property,
I just want to give some practical tips here.
I have a right. I am entitled to it. That doesn't mean that you are not. You are not supposed to ask it. The question is that even the maintenance or other things, as long as you are capable of, like, maintaining yourself, why you are asking the maintenance from our husband? If the question is that if you are entitled, you are asking, that means you are actually, creating a somewhat like difference between your family members. That women are there, more women are there who are like actually.
I'm really glad Surekha Shetty joined us on this panel, because she's making all of the arguments that I would have had to make in her absence, which is, and I want to take this back to Aishwarya Bhati because I interrupted Aishwarya. Aishwarya, this is it. Why are you creating problems? And this is where women, most of the educated, working, doing really well, shopping in the Palladium, tend to stifle their voices because they want to keep peace in the family, because they don't want to create problems among family members, because they don't want to irritate their in-laws, because they don't want to cause problems in the house, they don't want to disrupt their children's lives. And this is the reason why we stifle the voices of women in our country. I say disrupt the family life. I say bother your husband and give him sleepless nights and demand whatever is your right, Aishwarya.
I think, if I may
So I am not in favor of disrupting the family life, because this is a right. You really don't have to disrupt the family life. No son leaves his right just because he's well off or he is, settled in life. He goes on and claims the right that is rightfully his. So the daughter, who also has an equal right in the property of the father, she should not also give it up. She should take her right and then do whatever she chooses to do. Just because she is well off, it's not a reason. And nobody is asking about disruptions in family life. You can go on with family life smoothly. It is if you have affection, you don't need to go to court of law. All this can be settled by affection and mutually convenient sit-downs. But let me now talk about some practical tips. Mr. Shetty was talking about a prenup. To my mind, I feel that Indian society, our realities are very stark, and we really don't have, the maturity to get into prenups. But there is one thing that we must do. There is one thing that all couples must keep in mind when they marry. Please ensure that your marriage is registered not under your personal laws, but your marriage is registered under the Special Marriage Act. Now, Special Marriage Act is one act which is religion neutral and gender neutral act. So no matter what religion you belong to, if your marriage is registered under the Special Marriage Act, then all of your issues which are relatable to the marriage, which includes maintenance, alimony, custody issues, restitution of conjugal rights issues, all of these issues are governed by that Special Marriage Act, which is completely different than the personal law. And this is a very gender neutral and religion neutral law. That is one advice I will give to every couple who is marrying, because today we are so much in love, and when we are trying to get married and everything, but things may change. Now, secondly, the issue of custody that we were talking about.
I'll just come back to you, and I want to come back. Aishwarya, one second. I'm just allow me to interrupt you for 1 second. I want to bring in Dr. Shashikala Gurpur, and we'll come back to what the benefits of the Special Marriage Act are. Dr. Gurpur, you wanted to add something when we talked about disrupting families, or we talked about the fear of disrupting families, and I'm still concerned about the idea that nobody asks a man when he argues for his share that why are you disrupting the family? But if a woman asks for her share, then we're automatically considering her selfish, or we're calling her, motivated to disrupt the family for asking her share. And I think there's the problem. There's a problem in how we're approaching these issues.
Absolutely. We tend to forget that family is the first point where charity should begin. We say charity should begin at home. By charity, we mean the democratic dimension of family in terms of communication, in terms of sharing of resources, in terms of sharing of roles. Marriage as such is an economic arrangement. Nobel laureate Nash talks about it. How resources are before the marriage, how resources are managed during the marriage, and how resources accrue after the marriage. By resources, we mean personal resources, knowledge, economic resources. Now, within the family arrangement, if the couple have to sacrifice each other's rights, or they're forced to surrender their rights, then that's not a very democratic setup, and that is going to be disrupted. No family can be built on the violation of any member's rights. Now, here what we see in this argument is that the woman inheriting the home is one issue, where either there might be a will left by the parent, or it might be a home which is inherited. What if it is the self-acquired property of the parents? Then the parents will talk about the economics of how much money they have spent in the marriage, how much they have spent on ornaments, on saris, etc., etc. So the economics of marriage is something that needs to be deeply thought about if you want to protect the rights of women. Second, when the marriage goes sour or the relationship turns sour, what we need to think about is the right to matrimonial home, where the woman has spent the time just before the marriage reached the stage of conflict. That home's right is there in that woman. She cannot be thrown out of that home. She cannot be told you can't live in this house. I mean, this is what the Protection of Women Against Domestic Violence Act of 2005 has ensured. So we cannot say that in the absence of a single civil code or a uniform civil code, a Special Marriage Act only can protect these rights. There are other legislations as well which need to be strategically pressed into action whenever a woman's right is violated. Necessarily that will disrupt a family, but why should we resist such disruption? Because no family can be built on the edifice of inequality. It has to be similar level of understanding, it has to be mutual respect, it has to be mutual sharing of resources. The other dimension is about treating the girl child equal to the boy when it comes to matters of inheritance, when it comes to matters of succession. India is a paradox in this matter. Aside from the religious laws, we also have certain regional customs and practices where sometimes girl children may get better share than the boys, sometimes the boys may get better share. So I think that these diversity of practices beyond the court of law and the practices which are challenged in the court of law have to be viewed differently.
Swapnil, how often have you come across women who are afraid to ask for their rights because they're afraid to disrupt their families?
Well, from what Surekha is saying, it seems like quite a few women do. In fact, I've come across with quite a few women, and in fact, I've told them to go on the offensive on that. Surekha, one simple comment as far as your elaboration on these issues was concerned, that you not only seem to renounce your rights, you even seem to denounce them. So that is something which I think a lot of psychological makeup has to be worked on that, because family life has to be disrupted. A family is not going to stay integral and happy if a woman in question is unhappy in the first place. Because I think, just because it takes 100 men to build an encampment, but one woman to make a home. So it's very apparent, it's very important that a woman in question remains happy. Now, there are certain, one other point which Aishwarya pointed out, that Special Marriage Act would be one of the things under which you should need to register. But for most of the Hindu women, I would suggest that they need to solemnize the marriage and get that registered under the Hindu Marriage Act as well. So as and when in the future, should there be a divorce or any inheritance issue, then that registration certificate would come in hand to say that, look, hey, I did it under the Hindu Marriage Act as well, so I took advantage of the 2005 amendment, so that tomorrow if my father wishes to disinherit me for X reason or Y reason, I can tell him, hey, hello, I'm entitled to it. The Supreme Court has paved the way for that legislation, and 2005 amendment has taken place. So I feel...
So people under the Special Marriage Act are allowed to be disowned or disinherited by their fathers?
No, I don't think so, because I don't think so, because if you are a Hindu woman, then the Hindu Succession Act, the 2005 amendment would come into play, and that is where, see, it is an equal entitlement. But at the end of the day, if a father wills it out only to the son for whatever reasons, then a woman will have a right to approach a court of law. And let me point this out for the benefit of the people here, that these are all personal laws, these are all legal rights enshrined under the under the legislations, on top of which there is a constitution which guarantees equality under Article 14, which tells the state to make ameliorative action or affirmative action, which we call in the United States, or the ameliorative measures under 15(3) for women. So that stands at the very top of every other legislation. That is why the courts look at that, and that is why there is so much pressure for the Uniform Civil Codes to be in consonance with the Constitution.
I want to go back to Aishwarya on the point that she made, register under the Special Marriage Act. Aishwarya, in as simple terms as you can, would you explain to our audience why you believe the Special Marriage Act is more beneficial than any of the other forms of marriage that are available to us legally?
Well, Hindu personal laws were liberalized a lot after independence in 1956 and then 2005. But unfortunately, other personal laws have not seen the kind of liberalization and even codification. A lot of personal laws are still not codified, so it still depends on what those religious gurus interpret their personal laws to be. Now, Indian Marriage Act is the special regime which was made, and though Hindu women, Swapnil is right in saying that Hindu women need not really worry about this, because their rights are well protected under the Hindu personal laws, by and large. But I was talking about inter-religion marriages, people who are marrying between two religions. There, instead of registering the marriage under either a party's personal law, it will be better if it is registered under a Special Marriage Act, because that is already a gender neutral and liberalized scheme. Now, let me correct here by saying that if you register under the Indian Marriage Act, then you also follow the regime under the Indian Succession Act, which is again a gender neutral and religion neutral law. And that is a very liberalized concept. It already has. See, for Hindu women, they had to be made co-partners, because Hindu law also, the traditional Hindu law did not recognize the right of a woman to own the property in an absolute term. In fact, even before the 1956 Act came, the Hindu women were not entitled to hold property in their absolute right. They only had a right to life. During the time of their life, they could live in that. So that, of course, got liberalized. But if it's inter-religion marriages, please ensure that it is registered under the Special Marriage Act. Then it follows the regime of the Indian Succession Act, which is a very good regime, and it is on gender parity. So there is no need to worry there. And I also want to tell women here that, when you are in marriages, there's a very interesting quotation that goes in our family law, that so long as there is love between the parties, they're not governed by any law at all. But as soon as the love goes out of the door, the law comes in from the window. So all these issues we face, we talk about laws and all these only when there are issues. Now, we can't foresee these issues when we get into relationships. But, the problem will happen and can happen to anybody. It's not like only the next person will have a problem and my house will not have a problem. So
I want to one second go over to Dr. Gurpur.
Part of our earning, we have to make sure economic independence.
Economic independence. One second. And on that point, Aishwarya, let me just take this over to Dr. Gurpur about two things.
Economic independence while we are earning.
While you're making an excellent point about the Special Marriage Act, I actually want to take it one step behind to those people who don't register their weddings at all. The ones who have purely religious ceremonies and don't register their weddings legally. The other point I want to touch upon now, Dr. Gurpur, and this is a slightly hairy topic, about women who are facing some sort of abuse at home. Whether that abuse is physical, whether that abuse is emotional, and whether they or their children in some way feel unsafe. What do those women do? And what are the legal options available to them?
Yes. Under Prevention of Domestic Violence Act, women first of all can approach the police. There is the prevention order, there is a protection order. They can even approach the court for the protection order. by means of which they can prevent that abusive husband or family member. It could be husband, it could be son, it could be any other relative or a friend who is sharing that household. It could be a live-in relationship also. They can get an order to prevent that person from entering that area. Second is that this police complaint will act as an evidence in order to serve as a kind of threat to this person who may further continue abuse. You know, abuse is like a kind of ongoing cycle. They say that once it stops and again it escalates. So the whole psychodynamic of abuse, the cycle of violence could be broken by the usage of this legislation. Second, when these evidences are produced, that could serve as a good basis to begin the severance of the marital relationship and also to discuss about the rights. So the family court usually in such situations makes the couple to go through compulsory counseling. And during the process of the counseling, it will be very clear if this person would be looking at the dimensions of mental health and rebuilding the relationship, or should there be a severance.
Well,
so violence,
quick question before I go across to someone who is on the phone.
Sure.
So basically, if there is somebody who feels unsafe in their houses, they actually have to start with getting a lawyer before they do anything else. Isn't that true?
Yes, you have to, because if you wish to, the next step, of course, would be to get seek a divorce. And for the seeking of divorce on the basis of domestic violence, an FIR is absolutely mandatory. And one of the biggest advantages that women have, I do not know whether most of the women probably are unaware about this, is that there is a zero FIR ruling by the Supreme Court, where it says that you do not have to go into the jurisdiction of that police station where to register an FIR. You can go anywhere. Even if you are anywhere, you can say that this, and the SHO of that particular police station would have to direct that the FIR be registered. So that is the advantage that women have here. Just as they cannot be arrested after sunset and before sunrise, and they have to be arrested only by a lady constable.
Yes.
And only if they have been raped or they have been molested, they can go under 164 of the CRPC to canvass their grievances before the magistrate in camera, which is also an advantage. These are a slew of measures which have been given for the protection of women and for the to ensure that women do not hesitate a bit to go ahead and canvass their own rights and seek recourse for the law.
From the law. All right, Shika is on the phone line from Orissa. She's called us right now. Shika, you are on the show. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go
Hello?
ahead. What's your question, Shika? We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it so happened I was denied my share, my money from a long time since I was married in this house. So, and after that, and then when after 28 years, when I went to the Women's Commission that time, I was, my commission, they allowed me, told my in-laws that at least she should be given some money for her children, for her food, for her clothing. But somehow now they are trying to give me. But the thing is, from last 28 years, the mental torture which I had undergone because of my sister-in-laws, my two nanan jo hai, that is. So
आप हिंदी में बोल दीजिए, अगर शिका हिंदी में बोलिए, कोई बात नहीं.
या तो उसके लिए जो दो ननन लोग भी है, they had tortured me a lot. They stopped my money, everything, and I was really very much at the माने क्या बोले हम. So instead, बस शर्म के लिए I couldn't come out on the road and couldn't I say anything. So now when there's a International Women's Day here, so I feel some freedom, people talk about freedom for rights of women. See, in this condition, how long a woman suffers at home, I feel that.
Let me take your question over to Dr. Gurpur. Dr. Gurpur, आपने अभी सुना कि शिका ने क्या कहा. What is the advice you give her right now? If she spent the last 28 years in distress, and she's getting some recourse at this point. I think. Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah. Quickly, if I can say, see, the moment the cycle of violence begins, you should immediately, the first thing you have to do is you break that cycle of violence, because the longer you sustain, according to a lot of psychological and other dimensions of the studies, and even in judgments, it's very clear that it just escalates. So first is putting an end to the violence, that there is a kind of psychodynamic where the victim and the perpetrator are in a very unusual kind of interdependence. So first thing she has to do is she has to assess her situation. So meet a lawyer, assess your situation, meet a counselor so that you are in the right frame of mind to ask right kind of questions, to list your entitlements, to take an objective assessment of your situation, and then you take the right step. I think you should not delay. That's my advice.
Aishwarya, do you have any advice for her?
Sorry?
Aishwarya.
Yeah, I just want to say that, you know, what pinches the most is the economic. Economics is what pinches the most, you know, while we feel hurt when our relationships do go sour, but it's the economics of things that really pinches the most. I also want to make a point that while we are, the going is good, we should make sure that there is a saving that is put away for future in our name, in our children's name, the assets are divided. Let me also say that Sridhan is the gifts and jewelry that we receive on our weddings from our parents as well as in-laws or anybody else, and all of that Sridhan is ours alone. I also want to say that FIR is something that you know, you can register in many states now online. Even in Delhi, you can go to the website and, you know, a website of Delhi Police and register the FIR online. FIR is mandatory to be registered, and you don't need a lawyer for registering an FIR. Just narrate the story, what you have gone through. Domestic Violence Act is a very, very good platform that is given to stop abuse of women. And please don't, you know, go out of the matrimonial home just like that. It is your right to be there. So be safe there, be secure there, and assert yourself for your economic independence, because that is what is going to, you know, really matter in the long run. And unfortunately, our systems are so slow that the judicial process takes a very long time. But you can ask for interim maintenance in any matrimonial proceedings that have started. One more thing, there is now free legal aid available for all women in all courts across the country. It is now a constitutional mandate, and I have seen it myself that this is very, very effective in most courts. So if you can't afford a lawyer, please go to the court, ask where the legal aid clinics are, where the legal aid cells are, go there, and there are good lawyers who are competent lawyers who are volunteering for this, you know, legal aid work. And
right. So Aishwarya is making some excellent points. Right. Aishwarya is making some excellent points. Point number one.
Don't just, go to a lawyer at the drop of a hat. Register your story yourself. Try mediation if it works out. To go through counselor. Make sure you have some economic independence.
Okay. Let me. We're getting a lot of phone calls. I want to be able to take them. But this is the things that Aishwarya is saying to us, that you should not, under any circumstances, walk out of your marital home, because that home is your right. So if you find yourself in an abusive situation, contact the police. If you need a lawyer, there are free lawyers available, and if you don't know how to find that lawyer, call us, get in touch with us, and we will put you in touch with the people who can help you out. Ravi Nair is on the phone line. Ravi, go ahead.
Yeah. I think Aishwarya spoke a lot of which I had in mind. But let me tell you, I hail from Kerala, which is said to be one of the strongest woman-hold area, woman-centric areas. There, what they have done recently around in 2013 is that all ration cards were forced to change. All the houses will have their ration cards with the head of the family as a woman. A person who is around 18 and that person is an elderly person, can have the name of that person on the ration card. So automatically she gets that feeling that she is the head of the house. My point here is, when it comes to adoption of a child, the questions being asked is, if you're having a biological child, the child which is coming home should be shared half the thing. The same thing should be done with the marriage part of it here in India.
Absolutely.
Also.
All right. Well said, Ravi. Kerala does stand as an example of the only, or the state with the best sex or gender ratio, where women actually outnumber the men in Kerala. That's not the case in most of the other states. Also, let's point out that it has the highest rate of education, which is possibly why we're seeing all of these changes. Dr. Gurpur, go ahead. You wanted to say something.
Yeah, I want to make 2 points here. One is that in the instant case which we were discussing, very first point that we have to think of, what if this woman gives the complaint and she faces a danger in the house? So my strategy always was to identify a good NGO in the local area, take them into confidence, give your statement, develop a safety network, and then strategically move to the next step. Second point, just the laws and court battles are not enough. we need to have a very gender-friendly policy. The policy is the issue that the Kerala gentleman raised. I would say that at the national level, we need a women-friendly gender policy, family-friendly gender policy. For example, single mothers' allowance.
Yes.
You know, when a woman comes out of a matrimonial relationship and she is economically not so well-to-do and she has to support a child, it adds extra pressure. She can't pay the child care. At the same time, she can't be in a full-time job. Our job situation is not favorable for job sharing. So we need to have a national policy where single mother support is budgeted into the national budget.
All right, those are very excellent points. We have Ram on the phone line from Bangalore. Ram, go ahead, we can hear you.
Good evening, panelists.
Good evening.
And,
Good evening.
For all the women, great Women's Day. Now, gifts received by women or her property. Now, gifts received by wife is not treated as a gift under the income tax law.
Okay.
Now, what are we talking about? Here is a husband who wants to help the wife. It doesn't allow him to do that under the income tax law. Now, you are talking about divorce and all that. Here is one guy who wants to give some gift. Today is a Women's Day. I can't gift my wife anything because income tax doesn't permit me to give.
Of course it does. Any gift you give from spouse to spouse is completely, doesn't attract any sort of gift or any sort of income tax. The law is very clear about that. Ram, I'm afraid you've been misinformed.
You're 100% wrong in income tax law. You go to income tax law.
Yes.
If I give a gift to my wife and put a fixed deposit, that fixed deposit interest income is tagged on to my interest income.
That's because it came out of your earning. So it's not your wife's earning. Your wife doesn't pay any tax on it. You do because it is still your earning, Aishwarya. So what he's talking about is the clubbing of the income, which is fair. It's his.
Yeah,
it's
I
his
just
income.
wanted to clarify.
Yes.
I wanted to clarify to Mr. Ram that please go on and buy as expensive gifts as you want for your wife. Please do that out of the money that you have paid income tax on. If it is your income tax paid money, you can buy anything that you want for your wife. And I must point out one more thing, that somebody buying something for, under the Benami Transaction Act, the only two exception in the Benami Transaction Act is the unmarried daughter and your wife. So your wife may make no income, she may have nothing, but the fact that she's your wife, she's entitled to half your income. So you can buy property for her even if she earns nothing. It should be your income tax paid money. You should have paid tax on it. That's the only criteria that's required.
Fair enough. So just remember, there's nothing stopping you from buying gifts for your wife at any value. Your wife will not have to pay tax on it, but you will have to pay tax on your income, whether or not you're using it to buy gifts for your wife. That should not stand in the way of the gifts, especially on a day like today. Dilip is on the phone line from Mumbai. Incidentally, getting a lot of calls from gentlemen this evening. Dilip, go ahead.
Hello, madam.
Yes.
Hello, madam.
हाँ दिलीप, हाँ बोलिए आवाज आ रही है, बोलिए दिलीप।
सिर्फ स्टैम्प पेपर पे ही अपना जॉइंट मैरिज डिक्लेरेशन करके नोटराइज करके मैरिज हुआ है, मैरिज रजिस्टर नहीं हुआ है और दोनों के बीच में मनमुटाव है अभी और 13 साल हो गया है करके, तो अभी इसको अपना डाइवोर्स करने के लिए अभी वो बंदा आ नहीं रहा है सिग्नेचर करने के लिए, तो अभी क्या वे आउट है और आगे जाके रीमैरिज भी अभी प्रॉब्लम है ना, फिर उसके बाद नहीं तो फिर।
तो आपने स्टैम्प पेपर पे अपना मैरिज रजिस्टर किया, इसका मतलब क्या है दिलीप?
नहीं, स्टैम्प पेपर पे नोटराइज, स्टैम्प पेपर पे क्या इनोसेंट एज रहता है, 18 का एज रहता है तभी इनोसेंट रहता है, तभी जो रहता है। तो अभी क्या है कि जॉइंट मैरिज डिक्लेरेशन हस्बैंड और वाइफ दोनों ने जाके स्टैम्प पेपर पे अपना नोटरी करके अपना ये किया है, मैरिज रजिस्टर नहीं किया है।
मैरिज इज नॉट रजिस्टर्ड।
The marriage needs to be
मैरिज
registered.
को वैलिड होने के लिए रजिस्टर होना जरूरी नहीं है।
But the point is that at the end of the day, if it's not registered, that may prove to be a little bit of a hitch there. But then you'll have to convince that you were married by some other means. You'll have to show that आपको दिखाना पड़ेगा कि आप लोग सच्ची में आपकी शादी हुई थी अगर आपने रजिस्टर नहीं किया, क्योंकि आप जाके बोलोगे थोड़े विटनेस ले जाइए वहां पे और बताइए कि हमारी शादी हुई थी, हमारा रजिस्ट्रेशन नहीं हुआ, उसका मतलब ये नहीं कि शादी नहीं हुई है। तो फिर बाद में जो भी उसके
How can you prove this with witnesses, photographs, what sort of evidence?
जो भी एल्बम, जो भी होगा आपकी शादी का, कोई एल्बम होगा, कोई तारीख होगी, कोई विटनेस तो होगा, कोई तो आया होगा आपकी शादी में कि आपने दोनों ने ऐसे ही तो शादी नहीं की ना मंदिर में। तो something of that nature you'll have to go and show, and I'm that is not something which can it may be a little bit of a hitch, but I don't think it is something which is insurmountable कि आप उसको ओवरकम नहीं कर सकते, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है उसमें।
सुरेखा शेट्टी,
If
they have any, I just wanted to add it, if they have any address proof which shows that they are, living jointly, and actually they are showing to the public that they are a husband and wife, they can show that document as a husband, married proof or something like that.
और अभी तो लिव इन रिलेशनशिप्स भी अलाउड है, तो फिर क्या प्रॉब्लम है?
In fact, I want to go to Aishwarya. What Dilip actually asked us was this. He said,
No,
I'm having trouble remarrying. So he obviously wants this resolved as soon as possible.
Supreme Court judgments have...
Go ahead, Aishwarya.
I just wanted to add that there are Supreme Court judgments which have said that if the man and woman are living together in what seems like a marriage-like relationship, like a man and wife, then the onus is not on the person to prove that it is a valid marriage under personal law. It is for somebody who's saying that there is no marriage, then they have to prove that there is no marriage. So don't worry, even if your marriage is under personal law, please go ahead and file for divorce. And don't worry if the husband is not coming for divorce, it can proceed ex parte against the husband and you can be granted divorce, provided you fulfill one of the grounds that are mentioned in the personal law for divorce. And then you can go ahead and marry the lady anywhere she wishes to.
Aishwarya, यहाँ पे here just to point out here, it's the man who's asking this question. So you might want to rephrase your answer to that extent. That it's the man who's asking. He's willing to take a divorce. It's not that the woman has to go and say that, look, I'm married, but I want to take a divorce because this man is a boozard or a drunkard or whatever. So it's the man in question. So you might want to rephrase that answer.
In fact, I have a few minutes left now. Very quickly, 1 second, Aishwarya. I want to take another question. This is Sonali who's on the phone line from Mumbai.
It will remain the same.
One second, Aishwarya. Right, Sonali is on the phone line from Mumbai. Sonali, go ahead. We can hear you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes. Go ahead, Sonali.
Ma'am, actually, I'm calling from Mumbai, and basically, I belong to Jaipur, and my family is totally orthodox. I got married to a guy. He works in Pune, and from past 2 years, we are just living separately, and he's willing to take divorce. So just need to concern that only. Is it I can file a case for myself that I don't want a divorce and I have to stay together with him, because this marriage has been done under pressure for a guy.
No, so tell me, Sonali, do you want this divorce? Do you want to be divorced?
No, I don't want this divorce.
You don't want the divorce?
Yes, because I tried calling him many times, but he didn't pick my call. He's on his way that he want to earn, and sometimes he cut the call. His family also don't talk to me. They got married and they are just blank. They are not responding me.
लेकिन आपको सोनाली आपको डिवोर्स नहीं लेना है इनसे?
जी नहीं.
आपको साथ में रहना है?
जी हाँ.
You know,
I mean, see, मेरे लिए ऐसा है. It's not a play for me.
You know, Faye, there's a large number of women like this.
One second, let Sonali finish her point. Sonali बताइए आपको आप क्या चाहते हैं अभी कि आप लॉयर के हेल्प लेके आप ये डिवोर्स को रोक सकते हैं या आप अपना केस फाइल कर सकते हैं साथ में रहने के लिए?
मैम, एक्चुअली अभी तक डिवोर्स फाइल नहीं हुआ है एंड प्रोसीड भी नहीं हुआ है, बट व्हेन आई कॉल दैट गाय, he don't pick my call. He just keep in rejectless. He was on his with his friends, enjoying his life, earning so much, but he's not responding me. He just block my numbers. And
और सोनाली ये बताइए, पिछले 2 साल से आप जो अकेले रह रहे हो, तो आपको कोई फाइनेंशियल हेल्प मिली है या आप अकेले अपने आप मैनेज कर रहे हो?
No, from guy I didn't get a single penny. He didn't pay me a single amount. Just he got married. And after next day he left because he has some exams, his exams in Pune. So he went away. He has done MBA and he's earning now. But his family doesn't support me. Even her sister don't talk to me. Nobody supports me from their family.
I'll take this to Dr. Gurpur. Dr. Gurpur, this is unfortunately there are far too many cases like this. This is an individual who got married and then just left and was never heard from again. What should she do? And Sonali doesn't want a divorce.
I think first we have to build the communication between the two and build a relationship and check if there's a chance of rescuing their relationship, but not forever. You know, maybe she should keep a deadline of 6 months or up to 6 months max, and she should try to find the whereabouts, try to meet him and find out is there a real reason why he is playing this hide and seek, and her life should not be wasted in waiting for a relationship which doesn't seem to exist.
Mrs. Gurpur,
and then if that's not working, then you go for a legal remedy And that also could be mutual consent, if they think that both of them are incompatible. That would be an easy way out. Otherwise, work on the marriage.
Mrs. Gurpur,
but
I
waiting for 2 years and without
Hello?
any communication, without any kind of link with each other, that doesn't seem to be prudent.
Yeah, Mrs.
Swapnil,
Gurpur,
she
has a legal option.
Mrs. Gurpur, I
She has
disagree
legal
with you.
option.
Surekha, can I
Yeah,
just...
go very quickly.
Mrs.
Swapnil, go
Gurpur, very quickly, I disagree with you there a little bit, because I think if there is nothing there for 2 years, the person is not taking her phone call. He's not giving her any
he
money.
left her the next
There is
day.
nothing, and he's left her the next day, and there is nothing left in the marriage. It's a completely a hollow relationship there with nothing in it. So I don't think that this woman should be wasting her time at all after this, and she should in fact go for a divorce rather than not going for it. I don't know why she wants to stay in this relationship, because there none exists in my opinion. So I think she'll only extend her agony.
I'm listening to her.
I
She's the
we
one
have to
who is
acknowledge the
making
fact
the
that she
choice.
doesn't want to get
I
divorced.
just-
But yeah, there's one last question that I want to ask you all before we run out of time. Aishwarya Bhati, I'll ask you this question. According to the laws of this country, and my producer just asked me, is this really true? If there is a marriage where one person wants a divorce and the other doesn't, how does that work? How does that go down in law? Will they just wind up in a state of perpetuity where they are constantly arguing for a divorce, or is there a way to, to legally find a solution?
This is a problem area because irretrievable breakdown of marriage is not a ground of divorce under our system. Though this is there in a lot of developed countries, but it's not in our system. So if one person doesn't want a divorce and any of those grounds of divorce are not met, which is cruelty, desertion, etc., if any of those grounds are not met, and in reality, I've seen this way. A lot of women do not want to get out of relationships, even when the relationships are completely dead and done with. They don't want that tag of being a divorcee woman. They want to continue to be a married woman, even if there is nothing out of that marriage. But please make sure that, either I tell them that they should move on in life and make something that they can. But even if you want to stay in that marriage, please make sure that you have some economic security and you are getting some maintenance out of it. There's the only decree in Indian courts which a decree can be passed and can never be enforced is a decree for restitution of conjugal rights. So that is one decree that you can get in the court, but that is the only decree under Indian law that you cannot enforce, because you can't force two people to love each other. You can't force two people to live like husband and wife. That has to happen only with love. So if it's gone wrong, please move on in life. End it amicably. If you can't agree to disagree.
All right. We have to run out. We've run out of time. I have to wrap this up. But I want to wrap it up with one thing, with one thought. Unfortunately, in reality, if one person wants a divorce and the other one is unwilling to grant that divorce, then you do wind up in a sort of perpetual state of litigation where you're constantly going to court and trying to find a solution. In these cases, a lot of women then just wind up living separately while legally still being married. If you are in one such position, you must remember that if something happens to you, everything you own will belong to your estranged spouse. Everything you own, your husband or your wife, whom you may not have spoken to for 10 years, automatically becomes the heir to everything if something happens to you. In that case, what you need to do in the very least is meet a lawyer and draw up a will, putting it very clearly that you don't want that situation to play out. But we're going to continue to have these conversations because we realize how many questions need to be answered. Phone numbers are on your screen. I'm going to put my Twitter handle on your screen as well. If you are in distress, reach out to us. We will put you in touch with the NGOs, with the lawyers, with anybody who will be able to help you. We are here to help, and our phone numbers and our contact details will always be available to you. Do not spend another day in any sort of abusive or distressing situation. Thanks for watching.
You can watch live TV on our website mpnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Magicbricks Now. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at Magicbricks Now. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/Magicbricks Now.